For your peace of mind, and my own, this video was inspired by true events and created by a multicultural team of various beliefs and faiths. Welcome to the 1 Minute Rundown. I'm OC Trinity, your host, and the Animus says my ancestor was an Air Force medic, which is pretty badass, but not nearly as much of the stars of this game we're running down this time, which is Assassin's Creed. The quick way to describe this is Metal Gear meets Hitman meets Prince of Persia, but it goes deeper than that. From a storyline perspective, it's all about the adventures of Desmond Miles, who's using a device to relive the memories of his assassin ancestors from centuries ago to gain more information and prevent a doomsday scenario. As one of his ancestors, it's your job to lay low, blend in with the crowd, and generally be as stealthy as possible as you kill your person of interest. The story gets a lot of praise for integrating real locations, people, and exhaustively researched history so well. The game's also credited with bringing parkour back into the mainstream, as you can freely climb, swing, and run around on just about anything. It's one of the most financially successful series that started up this console generation. I'll review all 5 console games to tell you if it's worth the praise. This game had a lot of great ideas going for it, but it doesn't quite make the mark on most of them. There's a fairly basic flow to this. You'll learn the location of your next mark, you'll wander around town to find people of interest and do some detective work as to when they'll be out. Once you've learned enough, you'll report that to a representative in the city, and then you'll actually assassinate him. So a lot of this turns out calculated and methodical, but once you've got visual on your mark, expect a heavy adrenaline rush, those are easily the best parts of this game. And most of the time you'll want to keep a low profile and go for one swift kill, but more traditional combat is also an option, just usually not the one you should prefer. Altair doesn't seem to have a lot of combat skills for an experienced assassin, and you'll have more luck just simply waiting for your enemy to attack and then perform a counter than to go all out with your sword. And the build-up tends to be the same 3 missions, either eavesdropping, thievery, or intimidation, so doing the same tactics gets old by the end. And while there's some side quests in the form of killing high-ranking yet anonymous Templars and collecting flags, all you'll get from these is about 200 gamer points. If you played later in the series and already want to understand the story better, you'll probably want to pick this up, but if all you care about is the gameplay, you can do better with the other games. Let's start with the bad here. If you're playing for story, you might find this one a bit hard to follow since Ezio's story jumps around a bit. The combat's improved some, mostly by having a lot more weapons and tools available, but waiting for a counterattack still tends to be a better plan than doing lots of attacks, so it's not quite there yet. But where this one does succeed is in the variety. Rather than the open-ended approach the last game used, there's a specific script the game's following, and how you reach your final goal in that is up to you with a lot of different solutions. But the missions themselves tend to have a lot of variation, going anywhere from deliveries, escort missions, eavesdropping, pickpocketing, creating a diversion, random fights, assassinations, obviously, and a few others that leave you to figure out. But beyond the story, there's a lot of variety in the side missions, which also includes some races around town, collecting treasure from lost tombs, which drops the stealth mechanic and shows off the game's ability to be a climbing-oriented platformer, or some logic puzzles that can reveal some of the deeper side of the story. And every one of them actually has some benefit to it, even if it's just for cash. Oh yeah, there's a currency system now too. In short, one of the most improved sequels in recent memory, and if you like the first game, you'll love this one. When they announced the next game in the series was going to be yet another adventure of Ezio, I was skeptical, as was a little confused on whether this was supposed to be a sequel or another side game. And sure enough, the game's working off the same engine and game flow too did, including having the same sort of side quests available. It also has a revamped battle system that finally puts an emphasis on offense by allowing you to get large kill streaks, not to mention a larger variety of weapons available. About a third of the way through, you can start recruiting other assassins and send them on extra missions or call them for some extra help. The concept of 100% completion works really well here by having every mission in the game, even the optional ones, have an extra objective on the justification of perfect synchronization as to how it actually happened. And on the side quest front, you can expect to see flashbacks into Ezio's pre-Assassin's past, or destroy Leonardo's more dangerous inventions, along with the puzzles and ruins from the last game. And yes, we're still advancing Desmond's storyline in the process. I mean really, AC2 was one of the best examples I could think of worthy of a Most Improved Sequel award addressing most of the flaws from AC1, and this game manages to address everything that's left. So am I still skeptical of this other Ezio adventure? Hell no. Naturally, Brotherhood is a tough act to follow, and this game's a very respectable attempt at that, but it falls a little short and probably lands as the weakest game in the Ezio trilogy. The same basic game is there with most of the same features and flow, and there is a nice touch with bomb crafting where you can mix different shells and powders for different effects, but really there's not a lot else new here. The story mostly involves Ezio trying to find lost treasure from Altair, which also integrates the ruins exploration quest from the last 2 games into the main storyline and wraps up loose threads from both characters, but what's left of the story doesn't hold up all that well, and past that, well, there isn't as much. Instead of the logic puzzles we get in the last two games, you can unlock some first-person puzzle platform levels where Desmond explains more of his past, which is interesting enough to do, but a bit tedious. But as far as other side material goes, there's not that much outside of building your own team, and that's got too much grinding to really make worth it. And while suspicious activity gets noticed a lot easier in this game than others, the fact that the penalty for it getting too high involves a fairly lame tower defense minigame is a better deterrent. But in spite of my complaints, I have a strong feeling anyone who enjoyed the games before this will still get plenty of mileage out of this one. Fair warning, I didn't give myself enough time to actually finish this game before posting this, but that's because it was far longer and had a lot more content than I expected. However, it does take a long time for it to really set things up. The game's star, Connor, has a bit of exposition before the game really lets you do whatever, and before that is a section playing as his father Hatham, whose segment may very well be the longest prologue this side of Kingdom Hearts 2. So overall, there's a very long wait before you really get to the meat of the game. While I can appreciate doing something different, the game's outdoor environments feel a bit out of place in a game like this. The combat feels a little more fluid than before with more durable enemies, though it does occasionally reach points where it's hard to figure out what you just did or why. And really, that last part's not limited to combat. There do seem to be some bizarre play control related issues where it seems like the game's sense of direction doesn't match what it should. I also see a lot of side missions, though I can't really tell what kind of benefit you get from them, if there's any at all. However, the variety there is exceptional, including naval combat, pioneering a new town, even a few board games. Even if this isn't the best the series has to offer, it's definitely got me hooked enough to see how it all ends. That's the main series of Assassin's Creed, by which I really mean all the games that got released to consoles. There are a handful of lesser-known handheld games, Liberation being the best known of the bunch, but there are a handful of others that seem to have slipped through the radar. Sorry, I haven't played them either, so no review. The games from Brotherhood on also have a multiplayer mode, but I haven't spent enough time there to review that either. Adding to that even further, Ezio is the token unexpected guest fighter in Soul Calibur 5. As far as new games go, I don't think the series will be permanently left alone, maybe given a rest for a while. It's one of Ubisoft's most well-known series as of late, so perhaps all that will change is we'll see fewer games. But if what I do know about the other side games is any indication, there's certainly potential for more material, or a spiritual sequel even. If you think you'd like these games, you're in luck. They're pretty easy to find at your standard variety game store. Anyway, check back in a couple weeks for the next episode of 1 Minute Rundown. We'll swap out something grounded in real places in history for an implied futuristic setting in a galaxy far away. See you then, and remember, nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
I know all about your fight with Verity Patsy last night, and then this little visit to Christina. Your behavior is unacceptable. It reminds me of myself when I was your age.
You should find an outlet.
I have plenty of outlets.
I meant besides vaginas.
Oh hey, while I got you here, did you find the hidden video yet? Somewhere in this series there's one video that's not listed, where I'm doing a little bit of a poll. See if you can find it.